Hi, Mr. Ash. Welcome to Jeff's Podcast Academy. It's so great to have you here and your wonderful setup. So just a little bit about yourself and how you started on your podcasting career so far.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for having me on the show as well. I'm really excited. And as I said, I'm glad that we finally got to meet up because obviously I found your content on YouTube and absolutely love it. I mean, it really inspired me. I thought it was wonderful. So, how did I get into podcasting and like that? So my original background, I'm a content marketing consultant over here in the UK. I have a performing arts background, so singing, acting, dancing, that type of thing, down from the West End. And then got into content marketing consulting, working with large firms, predominantly in the financial services sector. So mortgages, insurance, things like that. And when part of the way that I worked within that space, and I still work in that industry now, I have two businesses, but part of content marketing is podcasting. And I set up a podcast. It was a long time ago now. I've had many since, so it's not the one that's currently active or anything, but I set up this podcast, and over time, the podcast was the thing. Everything else did well. TikTok did well, Instagram did well, always did well, but podcasts seemed to do really well. And I got into the top 13 in the UK marketing charts multiple times. I landed sponsorship deals. I was top 2% in the globe, and all of these things started to happen. And the whole time I was never actually thinking I was a podcaster, I was a content marketer, and hadn't really thought about it. And how I ended up getting properly into podcasting was I ended up becoming friends with some very big YouTubers out there. These 500,000, 1 million subscribers. Every YouTube coach that you guys will see on YouTube, you type how to do something, they became my friends. And I was very lucky to get into an ecosystem with them. And they started to, as I started to talk with them about my content marketing stuff, they were the ones that said, well, you're the podcast guy. When I have questions, I come, and these guys are big YouTubers, and they're, and super successful. And they were going, Ash, you're the guy that I know for podcasting. If I have a question, I'm going to message you. And I thought, well, maybe it's time to embody that, and I interviewed some of the top podcasts that people like Crystal Profit, and I spoke to some of the people around that space, and Travis from Poddex and all these guys, and started to realize actually I could probably do this. And so 6 months ago, considering I've launched multiple podcasts that have all hit charts and stuff like that, 6 months ago I niched fully into it, so set up a separate business and YouTube channel and launched the podcast. And now, like I say, I'm very much, it's a passion project alongside my content marketing consulting, but it's wonderful. It's growing very well, and I absolutely love it. So that's kind of how I got into podcasting.
The thing is, what you said is pretty awesome. And the one point I'm really curious about when you mentioned these YouTube guys that mention, when they have a podcast question, they come to you and, ask you questions like what to do in the podcasting, but you only saw podcasting as a content marketing tool, a place where, you can put out more content and stuff. So, I'm sure you must have seen Gary Vaynerchuk's content, somewhere on the internet. And he sometimes, what he does is he puts the YouTube videos on the podcast. Okay, so I'm just considering, have you ever given this advice to those YouTubers to do once or twice, maybe? Does this work?
Yeah, so it's this whole YouTube podcast, I could talk about this forever. I've got really deep understanding of this now because of spending the time. It's a funny one. So you have to be really careful with uploading a video podcast to YouTube is difficult. Uploading a YouTube video to a podcast is difficult. We can dive into that in depth. I could talk about that for hours. We won't have to do hours, don't worry. But I could talk about it forever. The advice with that, Gary's advice is always very good, but you've got to be very careful because it's very top level and it's got to be niche specific. And I love Gary's content. I love it. I got into content marketing because of Gary. I absolutely love what he does, but you also have to take a step back sometimes and see whether it's a good idea or not. And where the thing lies is if your YouTube videos are audio first. So if you're explaining something, not showing something, then yes, absolutely, you can upload that potentially. And then we'll talk about it. But if you're doing a tutorial and you're showing someone something on screen, and you're saying, look here, as you can see, we're doing that doesn't work. And so you have to make sure if you're going to make a visual podcast, which is what my YouTube channel is pretty much all visual podcasts, is you have to make sure that if I removed the video from that and or close your eyes or whatever, minimize the screen. If you play that video, does it make sense? And if it makes sense, then yes, you can upload it. If again, it falls in line with what your podcast is about. And if it falls in line with your, your format and your scheduling and your like everything about the show, don't just upload it for the sake of it. But yeah, you can do that. Vice versa for a YouTube channel, like podcast interviews. I literally just been in a group with Brian G. Johnson. We're just literally talking about it. Just before we messaged him, he was like, someone in the group said, should you upload a video podcast? And data is showing no is the answer to that question. If it's just like a Zoom scrape, if it's just like what we're doing here, but if it is, if you're trying to optimize that channel for search and for browse, then no. So you have to really treat each platform with respect. And if you do want to do a video podcast, you do want to make YouTube work, and you do want to make your podcast, your YouTube videos work on that, then yeah, like you've got to do a bit of thought. Now, where it came with the YouTubers was I was going on a lot of live streams with them. So they do a lot of live streams, with people like StreamYard and things like that. Yeah. And we were just discussing and chatting for like hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And I was saying to them, like, this is a podcast. That is a podcast. In fact, it's probably more suited to podcasting than it is to YouTube live streaming, and that's where, that's how that conversation started. So yeah, I know a lot of people who are doing live streams and they're like, no, it's not a podcast. And I'm like, well, it is. One of my good friends is like a Walter Strong, and he's not some big YouTuber. He's a YouTuber, but he's very, very small and he's doing very well. He's new. And he's on a show called The Huddle. And if I will drag Walter quick kicking and screaming until he uploads that as a podcast, because it's not a YouTube video, it's a podcast. And so, yeah, there are crossover. But if you're really wanting to go at it properly, you've got to approach it with a certain kind of mindset, I think, and a certain amount of planning.
Yeah, that makes sense. But let's just take one example from your content. I recently, saw your video on how to appear as guest on other people's shows. So in that video, you were talking about Matchmaker.fm and all other platforms. So that can be put as an audio only platform too, right? Audio only.
That is an audio one. Yeah. So every video you see on my YouTube channel, not every video, that's a lie. Every video as of 3, so when recording this, so as of the beginning of February 2022, every single video on my YouTube channel is also a podcast. And so that is an example. My job and my goal to me was like to show everyone how you can do it. So if you see you saw that one there, which is Podmatch and Matchmaker, like James Mulvaney and all that down there. Like I know James quite well. So there's like these type of people. So that's got demonstration videos on it, and it has got. But as you said, if you rip the audio from that, if you actually listen to what I say, I'm not saying. But as you can see, clicking here, you can do that. What I'm saying is you can do things like send it to your message, or you can. So it's the wording is really important. But yeah, most podcast videos. I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. That's my thing. I'm a big Star Wars fan. Love it. And like Star Wars Theory is the biggest Star Wars YouTuber on the planet. I think he's about 3 million subscribers or whatever. Now his videos are all pretty much he's talking about something to do with Star Wars, and there's stuff coming on screen, but he also has the Star Wars Theory podcast, and it is just his videos. And they're not explained, they work. And I think you're very right. There's a lot of content out there a lot of talking head videos could be podcasts. Like, absolutely. It's just tutorials. And I think sometimes if you're a channel that does a bit of both, you've got to know where you go, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of the reasons why I was really curious is that now I'm kind of like doing an originals show with one of the podcast companies, and I'm kind of doing it in my regional language. So I'm from India. I'm from Tamil Nadu actually, so I speak Tamil and everything. So there are no podcasters who teach podcasting in my regional language. So I want to do something like that. So I kind of like recorded myself and using my webcam and everything. I thought
Yeah.
I couldn't actually do the same editing what I do for for my audio and my video as well. I mean, I can in the video I can just put like sound effects and text animations and everything. But if an audio person is hearing those sound effects, that wouldn't make sense, right?
No.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that why I was really curious back, because a lot of people say that content marketing, you just have to put whatever you produce in your YouTube video, just have to put it in audio. A lot of content marketers I've seen on YouTube don't say that. So that's one of the reasons why.
Yeah, I would have said that before, but I don't disagree with you. I agree with you, and I think as in like I was a big Gary Vee fan, I still am, but like I don't think if you're going to do everything on YouTube, if everything you put onto YouTube, if you're going to do that, then you have to, as you're very right, sound effects things, they cause problems. Sound effects are okay on podcasts if they're designed for it. But for example, if you've got a subscribe button popping up and it goes click the bell and it's ding, if I can't see that, if I'm listening to that, I think, why is there just a ding? What was the point in that? Yeah. So again, it's just decisions and planning. That's what I mean with my show. I sat down and I went, okay, I don't have sound. I don't have background music. Best practices for videos, you should, but I don't, because it's a podcast first. I don't want the background music in case it distracts them. Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. I don't use sound effects. And again, I should in best practice for video, but again, it's a podcast. And so it was about like this, and it was about, as you say, sometimes, and I'd say this to lots of people, anyone who's listening to this, you've got to sometimes take the advice of these people, but also use a bit of common sense and think, okay, does this apply? Yeah. And, like for me, I was looking at my YouTube channel. Is it going to be the best YouTube channel? No. But people who come to me are coming to me to learn how to podcast, and I have to show them how to do it right. Yeah. Or well, not right, well, because you can do it any way you want. Yeah. But so I think sometimes we get stuck in going to try and be a YouTube channel to show people how to do something, but do it in the YouTube way. And I think actually you don't have to. You can do that. And then also, as you say, you can put the content everywhere. Then you can put it absolutely everywhere you want.
That's right. I think that's where the whole repurposing of content and everything stuff get into. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So before going on to that, so I'm sure you must have known a lot of recent events is happening in Spotify and Facebook. I once had an interview with someone called Andy Pitek. So he's the founder of Daydream Entrepreneur Podcast, I think. So I totally forgot the name of the company. So I was talking to him, and he was mentioning one of his goals is to scale one of his podcast and sell it to Spotify, bring in originals or something. When this events happened, I was like, I was happening like, why Spotify is being like a big stuff? These guys, everyone is going to Spotify. Why is happening like that? I was asking to them, and I was like, oh my god, I predicted something like this. Spotify disaster is going to come, and a lot of things are coming. So can you give an overview, like what's happening? What's your, just a take on it? Like, what do you think it's mean for the podcasters? Especially the problem came from a podcaster. So just your thought.
So do you mean like, yeah, of course. So just to get some clarification on that. So you're talking about like what's going on with Joe Rogan and these people pulling. Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, it's just because there's so much in there. We could tie. Yeah, I think it's an interesting one. I just literally done a video that I edited today. So I've been looking at this about this stuff that's coming out, but it's, I think it's an interesting space right now with Spotify. I know that they literally lost like half their shares went down like by 50% or something because of Joe Rogan saying something or doing something. I think that it is personally, it'll have nothing to do with it. It won't affect the podcast space whatsoever. This is hot air and it will be gone within 2 to 3 weeks. I think that Joe Rogan is the biggest podcaster in the world. He'll still be the biggest podcaster in the world in 2 to 3 weeks time. And I don't think that it has any bearing on it. And I'm a big content fan in general. As we saw this happen, it was like with Facebook, funnily enough. So it was with like Mixer moving to Facebook with the gaming space and the streaming space with Ninja. It was the same thing there. And it's all normal and everything's normal. I think it'll be exactly the same now. If it was me, I would want, and this is a Gary Vee-ism, I know you'd like this, is that I wouldn't focus on the news. If you're a podcast content creator, I wouldn't focus on the news. I would go just focus on you being the best podcaster you can be and putting it everywhere. Now to sorry, I got a sore throat.
Sure.
As now to talk about that space of these exclusive deals and things, I don't think that's a good idea. I mean, don't get me wrong, if I was getting paid 100 million, then I would take that. You know, Joe Rogan, if someone's going to say, there you go, here's 100 million, but we are not going to get 100 million. So I don't think this is a good move. And I think this is showing why it could be a bad move. When you are tied to, as a podcaster, you're tied to another organization, you're going to be held accountable. And so it's this, I think what it has shown though, and you know, some lessons we can learn from it is, if you are a podcaster and you are choosing to join a network, because these are coming up, they're very, very popular right now. I listen to all, like, a few of my friends have joined them, and I know you've just got to think twice. You've got to really think twice, because these, you know, they're technically networks, but you know, there are people joining networks and you can get more exposure. That's fine. But we are seeing, regardless of what's being said by Joe Rogan or not being said, because most of it's small clips being taken massively out of context, but like, he doesn't have complete autonomy over his show anymore. He does not control that show the way, no, he does, but he doesn't. And so something's going to have to happen there. And I don't think that, like, us as podcasters, the lesson from this definitely is, you know, as lower level podcasters, new podcasters, people going through your academy, people learning, don't just jump at the first opportunity of someone giving you a deal thinking, oh, I need to join a network. No. You control your content. Don't give that away easily, unless someone's going to pay you 100 million.
I mean, even sometime, you know, after like the 100 million, even feel like, I mean, like, is it even worth it? Like, you know, after taking a lot of stuff, especially if the podcasting, what you do is for passion and not for money entirely. I think that's one thing is extremely tough.
I mean, Joe Rogan's got this idea of, if Spotify let him go, which I very much doubt they will, because he's the biggest. I mean, he's literally the world's most successful interviewer, not just podcaster. This entire industry is held up on his shoulders. Let's just not kid ourselves here, like, by what goes on. People are funny about him. They like him, they dislike him, whatever it is. He is the spearhead of this entire industry working right now. I mean, there are other podcasters doing incredibly well. I'm not saying that, but he's the first one to break mainstream and to really show you that this is a real career. When he got bought last year, or around a year now, when it was all announced, that was a big deal. Like that was a big deal for podcasters everywhere to go, oh my gosh, this is like, okay, we're not making 100 million, but oh my gosh, this is serious. Because when someone does this, it's the ripple effect will affect all of us. And I think some podcasters have to be quite careful on jumping on the bandwagon of trying to pull down somebody who is the very first person who's dragging them up. So I think we've got to be very careful about that. Myself, I'm quite funny about this topic. So when I saw it, when you sent me up, we might talk, I was like, yeah, absolutely. But I do agree, because I think it's an interesting one. I'm not interested in what he said or anything, but I do think from a podcaster point of view, it won't affect the podcast space, because he'll just crack on. If Spotify get rid of him, he's made 100 million and someone else will sign him and he'll just crack on that side. But it don't make a difference. But I think we have to be careful how we react as podcasters.
Yeah, that's true. You know, I just want to give one small example that, you know, happened to me while I was kind of getting a little bit, you know, popped up in the space. One, you know, company approached me before this company that I'm signing right now. One company approached me and they asked me to do an original show. And when I read the contract, the you know, with the revenue and everything, it was fine. I mean, like, it's not like a really great deal, but you know, for someone in the middle level, it's kind of a, you know, great thing to get a deal. But the one thing I really got stuck upon was they clearly mentioned how the podcast should be. For example, it should be like for 20 minutes, and you know, you should talk in these topics. It should be these segments and everything. See, for me personally, this is my complete personal opinion. I really say this again and again, because if you're doing a podcast, it should be enjoyable for you and the guest. Not like, you can keep in mind the audience, but if you don't enjoy the podcast, I'm not so sure whether the audience would enjoy the podcast or not. So it's like, that's the thing. So if it's like for 20 minutes and stuff, I mean, what am I going to talk in 20 minutes? I'm like this much of a talker. I can't do stuff in 20 minutes. So I think that's where the thing stuck upon. And a lot of people think that, once you sign a deal, it's like, you can go and show off that I signed a deal with this company. Yeah, but what do you get out of it? I think that's what people get stuck upon.
When you sign a deal, you've got to do the work. I've worked with lots of brands and stuff in right now and also in the past. The brands are wonderful, and I've enjoyed working with all of them. But the reality is, when you don't get paid for nothing, you've got to do something, and you have to, and that means that you're at the detriment. It always is going to be at the detriment of something in your show. Whether that is, the dynamic content at the end where there's an ad read saying, please, buy this thing. That's fine, but that is putting a roadblock between you and your listeners. So there's always going to be that. So I think the thing with podcasters there to think about then is if you want to sign those deals, that's absolutely great. But then I think we also have to think about other ways of making money that you control it. That's very important as podcasters. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think a lot of people kind of miss that point. But yeah, let's see. Let's hope for the best. Great. Okay. So just this important thing that I want to ask you. I'm sure anyone who gets you on the podcast, the show, they will definitely ask you this question. You have a YouTube channel and you have been like putting content. Like, I have no idea how you get the content ideas every single time. It's like, see, whenever I see your channel, I just go and see like 4 hours ago or 6 hours ago. I'm like, man, I just saw a video just posted like 14 hours ago. How can he just post another video straight away? So I'll be seeing like that. So I'm not, I don't want to go like too deep into it. The one thing because a lot of people can just Google for the YouTube channels, but the one thing I want to ask you is the content strategy. How do you select the content? I think you showed one tool, in one of your videos. I just want to like ask you according to the tools, like what are the tools that people can use to find that content, topics and everything, and how to record like way much, like what are you doing right now? So that's two main things I just want to touch upon.
Yeah, of course, man. Well, I do a lot of content. I do 2 videos a day. So I do one short and one long form.
Yeah.
And it's 7 days a week. And I'm scheduled, just to give your listeners context, and I'm scheduled out now until, so like in the last 10 days, I've made 58 videos, I think. Yeah. And they're like B-roll, recorded and edited and like everything. So that's just to put that in context, and also obviously run a full-time business as well. So it's not, that isn't my whole-time job. I don't spend that much time on it. It's just things. So how do I do that? And that's what you're saying there. How do you do it? Well, I do it with systems and processes.
Yeah.
And there are systems and processes in place that everybody can use. So for me, I always think of top of funnel. So if you think about the shorts and the videos, so the first thing is, how do I have to have an abundance of content? I've got like 400 or 500 ideas ready to go. So I'm never going to run out of ideas because I'm always putting more ideas in and I'm always taking more ideas out. So how you do that is you can do lots of different things. First one is, and this is just, by the way, for your podcast as well, not just YouTube. It's the same thing. If you want to do daily podcast episodes, same thing. I use software like Answer the Public. So www.answerthepublic.com will give you 2 free searches a day, and they will give you the most asked questions around a specific keyword. So for my YouTube channel, I focus only on podcasting. So my keywords are podcast, podcasting, podcasters, video podcast, solo podcast, live podcast, anything that has podcast in it, I will do the research on it.
Yeah.
Like podcast alone, I know I did the search this morning, brings up 380 something questions that have been asked as of today for podcasts. So there are 380 potential videos you can already make.
Yeah.
So that's one tool. The second tool I use is a tool called it's Content Row, and it's headline generator, and that will generate titles. That will generate. So that's search, obviously, the first one. The second one is browse. So YouTube has to have browse feature as well, which is clickable as opposed to search based. And I use Content Row for that. And I type in podcast, live podcast, all of our keywords, whatever keyword you have. And I type that into there, and it will generate titles that are browse based. So it'll say the 7 things that your podcast is missing, or why podcasting is the future, and why, and it'll things that people aren't looking for, but they would potentially click on if it landed on the home screen. So I do those 2 things. And then the third thing I do is I go on other YouTube channels who are doing very well, but potentially in 2 niches for me for podcasts. they're in two niches. They're either talking about YouTube or they're talking about blogs, because podcasts align with those two things. So you think about so you pick a niche that aligns similar to yours, but not the same. And then I go to them. So I might go to Think Media and I'll look at the top, whatever they've uploaded this last week, 2 weeks, and I will take their titles and then I will tweak their titles to fit my niche. So it might be, the video that you're talking about with Joe Rogan today was the video I made was, which is coming out in like 2 months, but it was like, that the video I made was things that any podcaster can learn from Joe Rogan. Well, that title was originally created from things any YouTuber can learn from Mr. Beast. So that I look at the title and go, I know that works.
Yeah.
Put it into mine. So those are the 3 ways of doing it. That's how I find the ideas. And then how I record the ideas is I follow a very simple format. I use StreamYard and I have my setup like that. But what I do is my structure is very simple. I do an introduction, so a hook.
Yeah. And
then every single video or podcast episode, because they're the same thing, has 3 bullet points always. And then they have a takeaway. So there's an episode takeaway, there's an intro/hook, and then there's always 3 bullet points. So any title I put or any of those generation things, I just have them all there. Why podcasters should use YouTube, I'll go look it out and I'll go, okay, 3 bullet points. Why? I don't try and list 20, I just do 3. If I can think of more, they become another episode and they become another video. And so the great thing about that, just to give you that thing on that, is once I've done 3, those 3 individual videos, so those 3 individual points can now become 3 individual shorts, because they're, so if I did those into 3 points, I could break them down even further. And so as you can see, that's how you end up with so much content that you can never possibly run out. And it's a real system that I've been perfecting for about 6 years, like it's been something I've done over and over again.
Yeah.
But like, you just never run out of ideas. I mean, I filmed like 6 videos today, just today with that system, but the system is what makes it possible. Like without that system. So guys, if you listen to this, re-listen to it 3 or 4 times and write down it all, because I spoke very quick because we had a small amount of time.
Yeah. Now like I figured it out, like why some of the videos are like, 3 minutes or, 3 minutes, 27 seconds, 4 minutes. And I can now understand the bullet points, how you're mentioning. Then from there, you have to like recreating it. Wow.
They're all like little.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So you don't like record shots separately, like one shot content you do as well.
Yeah. So I don't make any. Sorry. So I shoot that video as a hook. So I would, it might be, let's say this one here, your journey, podcast, YouTube strategies for more subscribers. So I'll go in this episode and I use the right language. So we talk about the podcast. I don't say in this video, I say in this episode. So in this episode, we're looking at how podcast YouTube channel strategies could increase your subscribers, but also increase your downloads. Let's look into it. We're going to be looking at 3 things. Let's do it. And then that will go. Number one could be da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Number 2 is da, 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 da. Number 3 is this. Now what I then do, and I do it separate, because it's harder work. You know this as a content creator. It's harder work. It depends if you're good at on camera or not and good at delivering. It's harder work for me to find a good cut in a 4-minute video than it is for me to go back in and just re-record the short. It's easier for me to look at the 3 bullet points and go, if you want more subscribers on your YouTube channel for your podcast, then what you want to do is focus on this thing, because this thing is really going to help you and it will make you do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And then I'll do it 3 times. And I can do that in 10 minutes, like the 3 videos. And that is that, I think the editing is where we get caught. The editing is the biggest bottleneck for any content creator. So if you can remove the editing in some ways, preset templates, using things like StreamYard, using things like Restream, using things like Ecamm, wherever possible, where you can bring intros in and outros in while you're doing it, you save yourself a ton of time. I mean, it's a bit of a skill, but once you've learned it, it's very easy.
Yeah, that's true. And I think one of the main advantages you have is the setup that you also have, I guess, because, for some people, we have the workstation and set up in the same place. So we might have to remove some of the things. But for you, you have a separate place for the whole setup, and, you do the recording accordingly, and the editing in a separate way. So that's how it works, or is like everything done on the same place?
Everything is all done here. This is my entire workstation and recording station in here, but it is set up specifically for that. Like when I designed it, I had this custom built, and the whole thing, when it was built, it was purely designed for me to be able to. I've got a wide length screen, so like the wide. I don't know how long it is. I've got a wide length screen, so I can put three windows open on it. So I have all your questions here. I have your LinkedIn open here. I have everything I need at a glance. And then I also have like a vertical monitor. So I can edit shorts on a vertical monitor, and screen record if I wanted to on a vertical monitor, because then I can do it. So everything was designed, and as you see on here, like I use things like Stream Decks, so that my lights and everything are all, everything is designed so that at a glance. And the new thing that's arriving this week is Elgato has released pedals, so I can control things via pedals, and I have things, like sound effects and all of that stuff, and like the subscribe button dings and things like that. So everything is, it was expensive to set up. So what I was chatting to a good friend of mine who's a very successful YouTuber, and the way I saw it, again, it's money versus time. And when I very first started, it was on a dining room table with a Blue Yeti microphone, and I had a ton of time and absolutely no money. So I was happy to do all of that. What I started to realize, though, was if I could invest, as my marketing business started to take off, I was like, okay, there are ways to what we call like reduce friction. And the idea was like, okay, there is software out there, there is tech out there, that if I follow this blueprint and I follow this section, I could make this work really easily. And I could make 10, 11, 12. That's the way I saw it. But that's what I mean. It's been a 5-year process. Would I advise you to do it straight away? No. But can you do it? Yeah, because I learned it. And I've never missed a video. I never missed an upload I've never, I've never not uploaded a piece of content in the last 5 years every single day on something or another, because it's just trial and error. But it's just, if you love it, as you said before, man, you said it right at the beginning, you enjoy it. If you enjoy doing it, then you'll do it. If you don't enjoy doing it, then you won't do it. So it's one of those.
Yeah, that's true. One of the main things what you said is really, really at point, because I think a lot of people need to get in mind is that what you have right now, the whole setup is like of 5 to 6 years of working and creating content and everything. So some people who are starting out, they would have like, oh my God, I need to have setup right now. I mean, if you have the money, yeah, obviously you can do that. But for some people who are just starting out wanting the money, then they were like, don't compare your 0 years to someone's 5 years. That's like, it's not possible, because I did that a lot of time. Because of that, I was like so much, into a lot of bad thinking and everything. Then I kind of went to my Instagram and I had this one rule: don't follow people who are like 10x times above you. Follow people who are like 3 to 4 times, and you can set them as a benchmark, then follow them. So that's like the thing that I had.
That advice is golden, and for some of the best advice that I wish people spoke more about. It is amazing. That's so right. Don't follow people who are way ahead of you. You need to follow people that you could catch up and overtake. That's what you have to look at that. And you're so right. You do not have to have all this gear. In fact, not you, Jeffrey, mate. You can have all of this. But people who are listening to this, you don't have to have it. In fact, I'm going to tell you one thing: you don't need it. More gear. My wife finds it hilarious. Every time I buy something new, she's like, you're going to go into the studio and you're going to come out and you're going to be upset because it doesn't work the way you want it. Because every time I bring something new into this ecosystem of craziness that is here, it throws another spanner in the works. It's hard. You've got to figure it out. And if you are still trying to figure out how to sound good on a podcast, how to deliver an interview, how to do, That's the most important thing. You could be literally anywhere in the world, sat at any place. The visuals don't matter. If the content is good, people will listen. This stuff does it. Yeah, it's a talking point. Yeah, you go, oh, I love your setup. And everyone says, oh, I love your setup. But at the end of the day, it still doesn't, it's just icing on a cake. But you've got to make the cake first, you know?
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's point on. But I do love your setup. So it's not a common thing.
That's why I want it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's one of the things. But we'll fight about that later on once the episode is done. That's definitely happening. So great. Just a couple of things before closing is I want to ask is so is it morning? You said it's 5 p.m., right? It's now, I probably think it's around like 5:15, 6, I think so.
Yeah, 5. Yeah, nearly 6 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
no worries.
Yeah. So my question is, who was actually the last person that you made smile today?
The last person I made smile today. That would be my wife. That would literally work, because as I walked out the door. No, I'm joking. My wife and my son. So I work from home, so that I work from home so I can be around them all the time, and it would be my son. So as I was leaving, so that would be my person.
Awesome. That's great. And one of the important questions that I'm going to ask, if you want to answer, you can answer this question, because my eyes are like, sometimes it's, picks up very creepy details and, things that I don't want to see. You have tattoos. You have really great tattoos. Is it like actual tattoos set up, or is it like actual tattoos that you have? On?
Yeah, they're real tattoos. Yeah, they are.
Any amazing story? I mean, I don't want to dig too much, but
no, man, you can talk about I'm covered in them. So so I have I talk about this forever. Some people are funny about it. So I have like an interesting story. Yeah, so I've always loved tattoos as a kid. I've always loved tattoos. People might resonate with this. Again, it's culturally different depending on different places, but like I always loved them. Grew up in England in a very kind of middle class family. The idea of ever having tattoos would be completely frowned upon, and for many years wouldn't get them. Didn't get them. I had a little tattoo here, a little tattoo there, and then part of the kind of the entrepreneurial going out and finding who you're going to be. I remember I sat down. This was only a couple of years ago. I sat down and I said to my wife, I said, I really want a tattoo. Like I really want a tattoo. She's like, what tattoo do you want? And I said, no, I really want a proper tattoo. And so I sat down with a guy, and it was kind of like my becoming who I wanted to be. And I have one tattoo, or two tattoos. I have a small wrist tattoo, but I have one tattoo. Now you're looking, you got either arm. It isn't. I have a full body suit, so all the way across my entire body, all the way down my back, all the way down my legs. I have all the Greek gods, all of the Greek gods and Titans, Olympus, Zeus, everything. It's like 175 hours worth of tattoo work, and I mean it's done now. It's all done now, but that was my thing. And everyone asks why was it, and it was because it was kind of a feeling of this is how I'd always seen myself. I'd always wanted this idea. I walked in, so my very first tattoo was this, and it was 3 years worth of work every month we would sit down and get it done. And it's hugely part of who I am. So I talk about it forever, but it doesn't really come up because people don't really ask about it, but it's one tattoo, and it's like a piece of artwork. Like it's a full-on piece of art. But if you guys are listening to this and you don't like tattoos, I completely respect the right as well for that, because it's my creative expression. But as opposed to, like my parents don't like it, my family don't like it, but it was my ability to, it was a big moment, a Gary V moment of going, I don't care if you don't like it. I want it, and it's who I am. And to be honest with you, getting it definitely changed my life, because it made me, I was like, God, if I can do this, what else can I do? And here we are.
That's awesome. So do you have Poseidon, Hades, Ares, Perseus?
I have Poseidon, Hades, Zeus, Icarus, Atlas, the whole of Mount Olympus and then the god, and then there I've got Athena, Athena, Helen of Troy, Hercules, the Trojan Horse, Ares, and I think that's it. That is it. That's all of them. And then I've got Spartan. I've got a Spartan helmet and shield on my calf as well. So I have 3 tattoos all in all. I've got a small wrist one big body one that goes down my legs, and then on my calf I have this Spartan helmet, which no one even notices because it's so like I'm the guy that if I'm on holiday, like if I'm on holiday, I am the guy that gets one, which is what I wanted. It's a marketing thing for all of you guys listening. If you want to stand out, you have to not be afraid. You want to create like a polarizing opinion. You want people to be, and this is the story, you know, like with that marketing, it's like you want people to love your podcast or hate it. You don't want them to be like, that's all right. And I'm a walking example of it. I have people when I walk down the street, not down the street, but if I'm on holiday, like with my top off, in like say if I'm by the beach, people are like, people will walk past and be like, what does that guy look? He's ridiculous. That's so bad. They don't know anything about me until they meet me. Or I get people stop me and say, can I have a photo? You know, like it's like you don't get one or the other. And people find like, that's why I say like, it doesn't upset me if people don't like it, because it's doing its purpose. It's serving its purpose, which is to attract my tribe and repel my people who aren't in my tribe.
That's true. I mean, trust me, I even though I haven't seen fully, but trust me, I love Greek mythology, and I love the idea that, you know, you had this on, and wow, if we ever meet, you know, we'll definitely getting a selfie. So that's definitely
absolutely happened. Man, absolutely.
But that's so awesome. That's really awesome. Glad I noticed it. Glad I asked a question.
Yeah, you know, the first person that's ever asked me, you know, like, and over the years of doing this,
really?
not a single like no one asks. Like, I don't know why, but like they just don't. Like,
well,
they just don't.
I don't know. I mean, okay, this is a funny thought. Maybe some people think you're in mafia or something. After looking at that, it might be. Yeah.
Well, I'm bald headed. I'm not even bald. Again, I have to shave my head off for the sake of it. But it's like bald tattoos and like people think when they look at me, I'm like a, you know, like a bald white hair, like white, bald headed, bearded, tattooed guy. And I'm like the most opposite. Like I am like really, really like I'm a creative, artistic, loving, for open guy. So like, but I like that because I'm a walking contradiction, you know.
That's true. Wow. This podcast has taken to various level people.
Yeah.
Awesome. So jumping on to the final section, the thing I want to ask in this is, I'm sure you must have heard a lot about Web3 and, you know, blockchain and everything is happening in this space. But recently, I think I saw one news where, you know, some podcasters actually giving out you know, money in Bitcoin, or the sponsorship is happening in Bitcoin. Something is happening going on like that. So, you know, I think the blockchain technology or any of these things in Web3, you know, metaverse is coming, like, you know, how the Facebook is rebranding. Nothing has touched the podcast space yet. I'm sure it will take another, you know, possibly 3 to 4 years to, you know, get that into account. Do you think, like, you know, what could happen? What do you think as a content marketer? What do you think people? How do you think people use these technologies, you know, in the podcasting field?
Yeah, it's not something that I know much about, but it was funnily enough something I was listening to today, and the podcast was bringing it up on the podcast. It's Podcasting Made Simple. And I was listening to that, and it was Chris, I can never pronounce his name. Chris Krimus. Yeah, it's Chris. Yeah. This is a guy called Chris. He's the main guy who does Podfest. Yeah. And like, anyway, but they were chatting all about this, and it was very interesting because as you say, like, it was all talking about like NFTs and how they could link into it. It's like I was on my run and I was excited by listening to it. You know, I was thinking, wow, this, as a podcaster, one, I need to start looking at how to make content around this. And two, this is very much, it could open a ton of doors for us as for monetization. And because that's the issue right now. Like, podcast monetization sucks. So web 3.0, like it will open up new doors. What that will be, I have no idea. I need to listen to some more of Gary Vee's content because he's well into it right now. And a couple of my friends are into it, and I just have focused on podcasting so much right now that I've moved myself away from this. but listening to the show today, but definitely made me go like, this could be something really important. Because as you say, Bitcoin has been, that's what they were saying today, that it's tying it up, that it could do that. Now, I can't imagine someone's going to, no matter how great you are, someone's going to give you a Bitcoin. But like, I don't know how good your show is going to be for someone to donate you a Bitcoin. But like, I do think that this monetization method with Web 3.0 and how everything's changing, podcasting is going to be, I think, at the forefront of it. I think that it's going to be the thing we need in order to actually monetize and also still stay independent. Because that's the issue right now. If you think monetization has been around for content for a long time. Yeah. But YouTube is the gatekeeper. Yeah. The beauty of podcasting is that RSS is the main thing. So I think it's exciting, but apart from that, I'm very underqualified to talk about it.
Well, I think like, in podcasting, I saw like only one news, the NFTs, that people are talking about. So I guess, the more we go, probably in the coming years, we'll definitely get to know a lot on that. But yeah, I would definitely love to, I think if you could, I can actually get the link later on from the podcasting that simplified that episode. You just link it to the show notes. People can listen it, in case if they want to as well.
I mean, I would absolutely. It's episode 160. So it's episode 160, and it's podcasting made simple, and it's brilliant. Like, it's really, really good. I've listened to it twice. It is really good. Like, but it goes into depth about that, and I think it's definitely something that I'm going to be researching.
Awesome, that's great. So so Ash, thanks so much, for being on the show. We talked about a lot of awesome stuff. So just one final thing, is there anything like you want to ask me, like tables turned right now, like you're the host, but please don't ask me some tough GK questions. I'm a dumb person at that stage.
No, man, I want to know like what's going on with what's your plans? Because some of the stuff that you put in this show, I love. Like, so you're asking me questions about it. But I want to know, because it's podcasters asking podcasters, because it's such a new space. Yeah. What are your plans for 2022? What are you looking to do with this? Where's the goals? What's the goal for you as a creator? What's the goal for you as that? I'd love to know.
Sure. Yeah, first of all, thanks so much for asking. And so I think the first point is I want to make sure I want to create content in regional languages. So right now I'm doing everything in English, but in India, regional language is more of a big hit rather than English language. Like particular sections, like we have like Tamil, Malayalam, and all the stuff. Like we have a lot of regional languages. So that's one of the reasons why I signed a deal with this small company. It's the person who I'm working with. I've been knowing him for almost 3 to 4 years. So super cool guy. He already managed a lot of podcasts, so pretty experienced guy as well. And another thing I want to do is like a great kind of a digital product, or an online website or something like that, which helps the podcasters. And I just want to promote it because I've never tried kind of like Matchmaker or some other platforms, that I just want to replicate it, can do it for local audience and test it how it goes. So these are like my two main goals, because I'm not a website builder actually. My brother is a genius in that, but I'm just trying to get him help from him and see how it goes. But yeah, these are two mostly it. I think the later I just need to get connected with more podcasters this year. Because last year my extroverted side got converted into introvert because of the COVID. I thought 2020 would be over, but one full year, it really screwed up me a lot. I think a lot of people definitely must have got the same way. So this year I'm just like, okay, this is life. This is how it's going to be. You're sitting at home all day long. Let's make the best out of it. So I'm just trying to, make the best out of it. So yeah, that's mostly my plans. Yeah.
I love that. And I think as well, like, I mean, I don't know much about, like I said, I love the regional thing, by the way. That's so cool. And I think it's exactly what people should do. I think, I've done a couple of guest speaks, digital Zoom stuff, but like paid work over for people in India. I think that, and I'm guessing most of the listeners to this, I think that you guys over in India have this digital marketing content creation thing on absolute lock. And I think, I'm a big advocate of what you guys do over there, because I think that, that regional thing. I think sometimes, and this, I might be completely off piece here, but like I find sometimes a lot of the people who are like, say, like in India, you catered to the Western market, not realizing that your market is so much better than our market. and especially as a content creator. And I just think it's going to be an era. And I think you talk about that Web 3, like Web 3.0 and stuff. I think that this is the era where people of that side of the world are going to be paid the right amount of money for the right amount of work. It's irrelevant about where your location is. And I think that's been something for me. Like, I've got a lot of friends who are freelancers, and I love so I think what you're doing, mate, you're right on the cusp of something really quite amazing. So definitely push in and definitely do the regional thing, because that's something that is there's enough people talking English on podcasts. You know what I mean? Like, it really is. Like, it really. My wife is Greek, so she doesn't speak any. She speaks English, but like, I'm a big believer of this idea of that the internet needs to be diversified outside of English, and so it requires people like yourself to push that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you're right. There's like a lot of too many English podcasts already. But the reason why I always do English is that whenever I'm nervous or I'm too excited, I speak in English. I don't know why. My normal language just doesn't come, because I watch a lot of Hollywood movies. My life is set like not the American dream, but the dream where like Hollywood movies, how they show, like you go there. I mean, they have cool high schools, but I know the movies exaggerate a lot. But it's still. It's just,
you sound like my wife. That's what my wife. She's from Cyprus, and that was her thing. Is that she came to England because it was like the English dream, And she was like, she was like Downton Abbey and all of this stuff, and I was like, no, it's not like that. Like, well, it is, but it's not. Like, so I love that. But no, I think that's super exciting. You're going to be. I'm going to, now that we're connected, we'll be watching very closely.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. So great. Thanks so much again, Ash, for coming onto the show, and we have talked a lot. So if people have to find you, and they can ask for your help, like you are how can you be their podcast guy? So how can they reach out to you? So please shoot them away.
Yeah, of course. Best place to go. It's very simple. It's not as simple when you're trying to fund, but it is simple when you know where to go. Podcast Creators Hub. So Podcast Creators Hub is the name of the YouTube channel, and it is also the name. It is the name of the podcast. It's got a white cover with red writing. There are two, because I accidentally set up another one on Anchor as a mess around and then forgot the login. So there's two out there, but for now, and so that's the show. There are daily podcast episodes. They're going to be and videos. They're around 10 minutes long. If you have any questions that you ever want me to answer on the podcast, like on a video, then you can go to podcastcreatorshub.com/question, and I will answer them. If you put your name in there, I'll give you a shout out as well. I do so much content that I can. And if you want to connect with me and message me directly, then add me on Instagram, and that is @AshBorland. So very easily, Podcast Creators Hub, YouTube and podcast, and Ash Borland, and that's @Ash Borland, all one word, for Instagram. Don't post much on Instagram, but I do use it to communicate with people. So I'm messaging people all the time on it, but I don't really post much, if you know what I mean. So they're the two different ways. If you want to contact me that way, if you want to follow me and learn more about podcasting, the other.
Great. So and guys, I definitely link everything in the description, so you don't have to run anywhere. So you can definitely guys check that out. And once again, thank you so much, guys, for listening. Thank you, Mr. Ash, for coming on the show. And guys, I'll see you in the next episode.